Welcome to Americana. I'm Willie Montague.
And I'm Shakea Hinton.
Tonight, we're cutting through the spin, shutting down excuses, and diving into the conversations the country is actually having. So buckle up your seatbelts. It's time to get real, relevant, and relational right here on Americana. Topics tonight. Oh, why are the voters having an exodus from the Democrats? They're losing working class support.
Child.
Then we are getting into Nick Fuentes and his blacks need to be in prison comment. I'm sorry. That is hilarious. Homelessness in blue states, billions spent, yet homelessness keeps rising. And then to bring it all home, another blue wave. Definitely a question mark. Can Democrats regain support amid controversy? Let's dive on into it. There is an exodus with the Democrats, are losing working class support. Let's have that conversation.
Let's. What question do you have for me?
So the new data shows a major shift. Working class voters, including Hispanic, Black, and union households, are walking away from the Democratic Party. The question is why. Democrats built their brand, because indeed, you know, they think they got the brand, on being for the people, Morgan and Morgan, yet the people are leaving.
You are in such a jovial mood today, given this huge blue wave we had yesterday, but we'll get to that. So what is your question for me?
Why are these people wanting to leave? The working class that so many Democrats are saying are fleeing to the party seems like they're exiting.
Well, I can say the same thing for your party. There is a number of people who are just, unfortunately, they voted for Republicans, yet Republicans are disappointing them. Look, Democrats are leaving, independents are forming, folks are just moving around parties that actually fit where they want to be. And I'm not mad at that. Do what you will for what your values are.
It's interesting because we're going to talk about this later, so I'm not going to get too much into it about the blue wave thing, the supposed blue wave. But it's interesting because Democrats for the longest is saying that this was the time, especially because we're getting to midterms, that, you know, it should be overwhelmed because based on what Trump's going to do, this is going to determine how the country's going to go. But all of a sudden, there is an exodus. And I don't think there's as much as an exodus from the Republican Party as much as people are just wanting to be independent. But there is actually a true exodus from the Democrats, though.
And it could be. It could be.
Shakea.
I am not going to fight you on that. There could be an exodus from the Democratic Party. Is it a large exodus? I don't think so. I think people are disappointed in leadership in both parties, which is why a lot of folks are removing themselves from this two-party system and going over as independents or non-party affiliation.
You know, we did talk about this before, and that is true. There are people that are moving over to independents, non-party affiliate, but what gears me is if the left has focused on identity, because this is where they're losing it, as I mentioned. The union workers, the Hispanics, and the Black, what's going to happen in the midterms, because that's normally the people they prey on.
I think, and it's not even just preying on, I think we amplify voices that are targeted the most, which is Blacks, Hispanics, and the healthcare workers, right? The middle class. I think what we've seen in recent weeks from New York on down to Miami, and we'll talk about that soon enough, I think both parties are in this, who's going to serve me best? Who's going to help me pay for childcare? Who's going to help me lower the cost of insurance? And whatever party is speaking that language, you're going to see voters flock to that party. We'll talk about this later, but you have a lot of Republicans who are still Republicans on the ballot, but they have been voting Democrat, and we'll see that shortly.
Okay, so this is what I need to understand, because again, it goes back to this whole, the Democrats are for the underserved, but the underserved is the one that is walking away. So that's where I'm trying to get to.
But it's not in large number. It's not. If you give me factual data,
okay,
with statistics and numbers, quantify this for me, Willie.
But see, when we start quantifying things, this is why I have. It's just like taking a poll, and I do agree. Some polls are good. Some, some are all right, but everybody's not polled in those numbers because most of the time, how many polls have you received?
I've received 2.
Okay, but most people don't get polls.
That's true.
So do they only poll like a quarter of America, and then that's how they determine it? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, let's talk
see.
about Nick Fuentes. Blacks need to be in prison. A far-right extremist recently had a heated exchange with Piers Morgan stating blacks need to be in prison.
Why is this comical to you? Because you've been laughing since we opened up the show talking about this idiot.
Because I don't know why y'all take Nick Fuentes serious. Like, even Republicans don't like Nick Fuentes. So I just don't know why people take him serious.
But folks, the people who do take him serious are the ones who identify as MAGA with him. At one point, Marjorie Taylor Greene agreed with him. Trump was invited or he was invited to one of Trump's rallies. Like, they used to travel in packs.
Well, hold on now, though. That was then later on corrected, where Trump said that he did not know that Nick was going to be there.
No. Okay, we'll give it to Trump. There's a lot of things that senior citizens typically don't remember. So there's that. However, this young gentleman is not talking to the Republicans like we spoke about yesterday, right? The 3 tiers within the Republican Party. He is mainly targeting his messaging and narratives towards the MAGA folks, young MAGA folks, the extreme right-wing folks. Do you not agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so is his language and narrative, is it harmful for our society?
Well, so let me back up. Let's pull Nick Fuentes out of it, the person Nick Fuentes. Let's break down in real time what's going on in any community when it comes to crime. Should those people not be in prison if they're committing crimes?
But we can't say that generically because he specifically said blacks.
So should black people who commit crimes not be in prison?
Black people who commit crimes should be in prison, just like our current president and his cabinet, who has committed a federal crime, should be in prison, and their day will come very soon.
Okay, but what I'm saying is now let's add Nick Fuentes back to it. We know Nick Fuentes has an issue with people who are not of his same race.
Which is?
White.
Okay.
So.
And who are male.
So put that into the mix, and then, of course, it would sound to us as a form of racism.
It's not just sounding, it is racist.
Pull him out of it and then look at it from the angle of, as you mentioned, whoever else needs to be in prison according to you that commits a crime. So then you will see where it is no more than us saying people who commit crimes need to be in prison.
Absolutely. I hear that, and your analogies, all that makes sense. But in context, given what he said verbatim, he single-handedly pointed out that blacks, he did not say any other race, he did not say any other than what he said, blacks should be in prison. And I wish we could run that clip, because the full clip was talking about how blacks should be in prison, women shouldn't vote. It was very misogynistic. It aligned a lot with what, rest his soul, Charlie Kirk used to say, but it was more extreme. Now, I don't know much about this young man because I don't pay him much attention, right? It caught my attention because he is now sparring with this gentleman who typically you're like, if you are arguing with this man, like you've reached the bottom of the bottom.
Well, we all knew that about Nick. So if you research it, you'll see that.
Is he Hispanic with the last name Fuentes?
I don't know. Nick has been like basically depleted of it, so he gets any platform to be able to do that. But this is what I would say in reference to something you mentioned about the prisons and going forth. We have to realize as a people of color that we have to start being the voices of the ones that stand up. And I think that we have this, as I call it, mass hysteria. Excuse me.
You shouldn't be saying what you're about to say.
I mean, we have mass hysteria when it comes to stuff like this, and we don't take accountability to start moving in a different direction.
So what do you mean, like us having mass hysteria about what he mentioned, his comment?
Yeah, every time somebody says something about black people, we start getting to, oh, it's racist, but we don't do anything to change the narrative. We just live up to what they're saying.
No.
And then to the point, this is what I was going to say about the women voting. You know, to a degree, this is why I don't believe we would ever have a woman as president, because our country is not ready for it. And then as we look at it also, we do have women that often are extremely emotional. This is why it's important that men must lead the way so that we can
You
go
say
forward.
that women are extremely emotional, yet we have a sitting president who goes on hours upon hours of a rant on social media, not talking to an actual human, but puts all of his feelings and emotions online.
I'm talking gender specific
Talk
here.
about
Trump is a male.
emotional intelligence.
Well, emotional intelligence is,
Talk
yes,
about emotional
but let's talk
intelligence.
About, as we was talking about women in their need.
So you're saying that
emotions.
women shouldn't vote?
All right, we have to take a quick commercial break.
Let's do
it. Don't move. We'll be right back discussing homelessness boom in the blue states. Where did the money go? And another blue wave. Stay with us. This is Americana.
Why you choking?
Welcome back, and cut. All right, homeless boom in the blue states. Where did the money go? Billions spent, homelessness rising, crime rising, public spaces collapsing, and it's overwhelmingly happening in Democrat-run states. Of course it is, because they always want to be the heroes until they have to do the work. Shakea, what are we gonna do with your people?
You know, your commentary is so unserious, and I just have to laugh internally as well, Willie. So let's discuss the state of homelessness. Homelessness is not party affiliated. Both red and blue states are seeing an increasing number of homelessness. Why? Because inflation is through the roof. People are trying to decide, am I going to pay for childcare, or are we going to have a solid dinner meal tonight for my kids? Am I going to pay my mortgage or my rent today, or am I going to pay my car note? So red and blue states are feeling it. However, to your point, I would have to agree. We are seeing a larger number of homelessness in blue states. Why? You have to ask yourself about density. State of California has a larger population, and their density is much greater than any other state that we have in our country, right? Then you have New York. New York is also seeing an increase in homelessness due to a lot of folks seeking asylum. I know that you're going to have a problem with that, and we can talk about it too. Asylum seekers, immigration, and also the cost of living in New York is through the roof. And I can go down through a number of states that's also seeing this, but yes, I would have to agree.
So now, with that being said, these Democrat-run states with these Democrat governors, with often these Democrat mayors and Democrat commissioners who then go after taxpayers' dollars, building up these big buildings, putting more or less tax incentives on the people and asking and taxing them even more. Where is the money going?
So let me stop you there. You have more Republican governors in this country than you have Democratic governors.
But we're doing the job.
Hold on. So you're saying, you made a statement that there were more, you said that Democrat governors are doing X, Y, and Z. I am just refuting what you were saying by saying that there are more Republican governors leading this country than there are Democrat governors. What you are, I think you are trying to say, is that there are a lot of Democrat municipalities who are ran by Democratic mayors or city councilmen, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you saying that?
Yeah. Even though we have red states, you have, as you said, local government with blue leadership. That's why I mentioned the mayors, the commissioners, and such. But again, to my question, where is the money going? Because these are people who constantly say, you know, we need dollars, or, oh, they're, you know.
So the claim is fair. However, the question still is the same. If we had money, we would be able to answer that in a concrete way. We Democrat folks are not getting the same resources that many red governors and red municipalities are getting. You have to say that that is a true fact.
No,
if that wasn't,
Shakea, that's because they're out there having concerts.
No, okay, so you keep bringing that up. That's a sore spot for you. We can talk about that in detail if you would like.
They're having concerts and out there having sex orgy stuff. They don't have.
If you want to be invited to the sex orgy, we could talk about that too. I can get you an invite.
They don't have.
I don't know what type of concert you are talking about that is involved in a sex orgy when we're talking about politics. Again, Republicans have this fetish with sexualizing things that are actually happening in our country.
We just call out what the Democrats do, which is.
And the person that you're referring to subliminally is a congressman. He's not even a governor. The person you're referring to subliminally is not even.
You could tell him that he wasn't. You could tell him he wasn't a governor, though.
To stay on track with the topic that you are asking me about, the funding that you are referring to, we are still asking for that. So a lot of Democratic cities are not seeing it, which is why we have a high rise in homelessness. If we had the right funding and we had the right resources, do you not think that anybody in their sensible mind will want to have their constituents housed?
I just don't think that's.
Why are we gambling with people's livelihood?
You got to ask the Democrat leaders.
No, it's not. That is not a party issue.
It's a party issue.
It is not a partisan issue. Homelessness,
I believe that
is happening in both red and blue states.
You know why they don't get the money? They don't get the money because they don't want to submit to accountability to President Trump when he tells them what they need from federal dollars.
That is not true.
And that's the reason why the people on the streets are suffering. You have
builders and investors coming into blue cities who are pushing people out, which is called gentrification. When they come into these cities and these different municipalities that are targeting low-income people, you are forcing them out, driving their rent up to 2 to 3 times what they were currently making. Where are those people going to go? And then the other side of that, Willie, is that you don't have enough resources to house these homeless people. So then you have homelessness that is now being criminalized and folks are in jail. Do we have a lot of prison space for these people? No. So where do they go? They on the street.
To that point of that, okay, yes. You may have individuals that's on the street, but that's when the municipalities and the local government step in and start providing resources for the homelessness.
And the resources they have are limited because there is not funding being funneled to that cause.
It is. I just believe that Democrats are spending it on recklessness like they so often do. But speaking of that, they want to say they have a wave of homelessness and poop all over their states. So last night, the city of Miami elected their first woman
Eileen
as a mayor, making this also the first Democrat in 30 years.
Yes.
We already know that Miami is often known as a place of crime and wrecked with trashiness. So this would not be something that is
That is
shocking.
So tasty of you.
This would not be shocking that they elect a woman, which just would show that it was probably going to decline now that that is so.
That is crazy, given that her incumbent was endorsed by Trump. And we've seen this trend. When Trump is now endorsing people, the voters are going the opposite way. Why? Because currently we've been under this administration for about 10 and a half months.
But that didn't happen in Tennessee, though.
The people are feeling it. That is one state. That is one state.
And this is one city.
And that is one state. However, this city, the city of Miami, just broke a glass ceiling. They have never had a woman be the mayor of a city of that stature. Secondly, she is a Democrat. Now, if you remember, Trump during his first campaign and even this last election did a lot of campaigning in Miami, trying to persuade the Hispanic vote to be a part of the Republican Party. Now, I don't believe that all Democrats were the only ones who were voting for Eileen. I'm pretty sure there were Republicans who voted for her because they are tired. The people are tired, Willie.
I don't think so. I just think it was one of those things where the same thing with Obama. I think people had buyer's remorse after the second term, probably the first term. But because I had many people that say, even Republicans said, we voted for him because we said, why not have a black president? It's something different. Let's do it. Let's give it a shot. I think the same thing. Hold on. I think the same thing with this. Okay, it'll be our first woman. It'll be it's when people feel like, you know what? Let's give something different a try. Let's see what they're going to do.
Well, I can say the same thing about Trump. At first, we've never had a televised person run for politics. We've never had someone who didn't have the actual credentials.
That's the problem.
Hold on.
There is no credential for the
I just let you finish now. Now, Trump came in with no tenure of government policy. We all were looking at him like there is no way this man who just was on The Apprentice, who just filed for bankruptcy 4, 5, 6 times, is going to be the chief and commander of this country. Here we are. 2 terms later, this man is currently the sitting president of our United States. Now we have a woman who's been doing the work on the ground, and she has now broken a glass ceiling, and you are saying that it's because, oh, the folks are just wanting to try something new?
Let me ask you a question.
Boy, I tell you.
What tenure of government policy
I tell you.
did our founding fathers have when they established the United States?
You always refer to them, but you don't include that is not necessarily relevant for right now, Willie.
It is, because
the times have changed.
No, because at the end of the day, we establish rules and bylaws of what we think should look like a presidential candidate. And our founding fathers said these should be everyday people that do just what we do and go out there.
Absolutely correct.
So going out there.
So why is that different now for Eileen, that she is an everyday woman who is now holding the seat as mayor-elect of Miami?
Well, you know why it's different? Because it was more of a selection because people felt sorry.
That's your argument? People felt sorry? So I would like to see the other people who you claim have felt sorry as we approach this midterm election. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to have buyer's remorse in what they purchased or what they voted for last election with the presidential candidate. And here we are coming up on this midterm election.
I don't think so.
Speaker Mike Johnson, actually, this is kind of like a sidebar, but it's in tandem. Speaker Mike Johnson said something today. A reporter asked him about Jasmine Crockett running for Senate, and he rubbed his hands like this, like a little gremlin, and was like, well, I wish her the best. I hope she has a microphone out there. She'll never win Texas because Texas knows that they are a Republican state.
They are.
I wish, I hope and pray that we are able to hold that clip and run that back when she and the other people who are running in Democratic seats.
We'll do that. You said the same thing about VP.
Upside down.
The same thing about VP Harris, and we came back.
Upside down. And
she
you're
lost.
right. She lost. However, we are on the mend. Let's go, y'all.
Yeah, that's another episode.
Let's go, y'all.
I'm Willie Montague.
And I'm Shakea Hinton.
Thank you for showing up for Real Talk and Real Truth today. We'll see you tomorrow right here on Afro TV. Until then, stay aware, stay courageous, and never let the narrative define you. Have a good night, y'all.
Bye, guys.